When I click on my 8,000, it shows up as red. So it's Vectorworks. When red lines come up, Vectorworks is saying this is the kind of thing that you're after. And I'm like, yes, please. So 8,000 millimeters. We want dimensions. Here we go. So now I'm just going to click on it and voila, there is everything clicked. All my dimensions are now clicked, which means in one easy swoop, I can go into my object info shape palette, go to my layer. You'll see there's nothing there at the moment because there's multiples selected. Left click on it on the drop down box and then click dimension. Now, if I go into my selection tool to get out of there and click on my white space, I can now click back on this one. And if I go to my object info, you'll see that it's now on the dimensions layer. Equally, this one here is on my dimension layer. They're all on the dimension layer. So select similar tool is literally that. You can select everything that is similar to that original red object that you've highlighted. The other thing to note in select similar is that you have preferences. So when you get further down the track with Vectorworks, if you want to just choose something that's all the same layer, you can just click this. If you want everything that is the same font style, you can simply click this when you're working in the tool. Okay, so this is how you can change those things. At this point, it's on object type, so it's picked up all the dimensions because it's an object and it's a type of object. So I'll just click OK to get out of there. All right, so now everything is on our dimension layer. And I'm going to go to my selection tool to get out of that fairy wand. Okay. All right, that was showing you the preferences with step 26. What we're going to do is turn our dimensions layer off. If we try and do that while it's activated, have a look. It doesn't really do much, okay? That's because it's activated. It's saying, no, I'm on. Too bad. Let's instead change to our fountain layer because we're going to manipulate our fountain in a minute. So double click on fountain and activate it, and you can see the dimensions are now gone ski. I'm just using my mouse wheel to zoom in. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to do is learn to group some objects. And the purpose of grouping is because if, for instance, I wanted to move this fountain and I just happened to click on the inside circle and tried to move it, that happens because it's not grouped together. These two objects are totally separate. Now that I've done all my attribute filling and I'm really happy with it, I want to group them so that they work together. So I'll just edit and undo that. So to group an object, what you need to do is choose your selection tool, select your first object. You need to hold your shift key down to select your second object. Okay, so if you hold your shift key down and click, it collects everything that you're clicking. So once you've done that, go into modify and go into group. Now, if you have a look, and I'll edit undo it, edit undo, we'll do it again. At the moment, you can see that there are two circles highlighted here, the outside one and the inside one. All right, and if you remember to do that, I'll show you again, is you use your selection tool, click on the outside rim and hold your shift key down and click on the water so that they're both clicked. So there's two circles now. I'm going to go and modify, group them and watch what the orange highlighted areas do. So now you can see it's come up with a box. That is telling me that these two objects are a group. So if I now try and move this, I'll just try and get the move tool up, which is that crosshair. Always gives me a bit of trouble. There we go. If I try and move it, it's now moving as one object, which is what the fountain is. So now it's stuck together. I'll just undo that so it goes back to where I want it to be. Okay, so that was step 27, learn to group objects. You can ungroup this at any time. If you use your selection tool and click on it, you can go back to modify and you can ungroup it. Okay, you can even go in and edit the group. So let's do that. Edit group. And what you'll see is when you're in this edit group, you'll see a big orange frame come up. That means you're working within a group. And you'll see that there's an exit button on the outside. Now, because we're in here, I can double click and modify this outside rim. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to change it to, what's that? Change it to this, that one. Double click, it's downloading. There it goes. I think I had them both clicked. That's not cool. But I'll go in here now into the inside circle and I'll change that back to a water. Okay, this is off script, so bear with me. Change that to that water. Double click. Okay, there we go, in good stead again. So we've got our outside rim and we've got our inside rim. When we're in our group with the big orange frame around it, we can modify these things individually, just like I did. Unfortunately, I had both those circles clicked the first time around, so I should have just clicked one and then clicked the other. And then once we go and exit the group, we can see it's changed the way I wanted it to, but it's still together and I can't actually collect those circles anymore because it's treated as one object. So double click, I'm in where I can manage my group and exit out of group. Okay, so that's how groups work. There are lots of different ways in your notes that you can modify groups and edit them. Have a look through your notes and do that. I will show you one though. So what I'm going to do, I'm using my mouse wheel, is I'm just going to copy this across. So I'm just going to, for simplicity, click on it, just go edit, copy, edit, paste, another one pops up. And I'm just going to hold my mouse key down till I get those crosshairs and I'm going to copy it over here. Using my mouse wheel again, we're just going to play with this one a little bit. So apart from going in and editing groups, the other thing you can do with the group is if you click on it, your object info shape palette comes up and it's got the X and Y values of your fountain. So it's got the length and the width basically, which is 4,000. Right. I'm going to change this to 6,000. Let's see what happens. So you can see that the width of it along the X-axis has now grown to 6,000. So it's starting to look like a bit of an oval. I can change this also to 6,000 and get it back to being a giant fountain. Okay, so there's different ways of modifying a group. You can use your object info shape palette to do some basic things, or you can double click and get your big orange frame with your exit group tool and you can modify these things separately if you wish. Okay, I'm just going to delete that by using my selection tool, clicking on it and deleting. Cool bananas. All right. Now, that was step 29. I think I'm going to leave the video there because the next steps is we're going to do some plants and we're going to use a circle tool first to use some plants, but I'll do that in the next video. So hopefully this was useful. I'm going to save this now. Save, so I'm up to date. And I'll do a third video where we start looking at building the hedge as per the front page of the student notes. We're going to plug in an object, which is a tree in this case, and we're just going to use the text tool to write our name on it. Okay, so they are the next couple of steps. All right, so I'm going to save it again to make absolutely sure. And that is the second video in the V4 series of Vectorworks Tools, Learning Activity 1. Thanks, guys. All right, I'll stop the recording. Here we go.